What's going on YouTube? It's Mike here. Today guys, in this video I'm going to be giving my final predictions and rumor roundups about the iPad 5 and iPad mini 2 that Apple could be potentially announcing next week. So the current time set is October 14th, which actually happens to be my birthday. Thank you guys for all the happy birthdays on Twitter and stuff. But what I wanted to talk about in this video today was my final rumor roundup and predictions on Apple's upcoming iPad mini 2 and the next generation of the full-sized iPad, the iPad 5. So if you remember from last year, Apple's iPad announcement took place around October 23rd. The big estimate right now is October 22nd for Apple to announce, the new iPads and a few other things like the final release of OS X Mavericks for the Macs, as well as the new Mac Pro, which is expected to come out in fall, as Apple said themselves. There's really not that much time left for fall, Apple, so it'll most likely be coming in their announcement. Now, there's currently no set perfect date that can be confirmed because Apple actually hasn't even announced a date yet. However, it's being heavily predicted that there will be an invitation sent out this week. It was predicted to be come as early as last week. However, we got nothing, so it's most likely going to be coming for sure this week. Since by the end of this week we'll already be at October 19th, so we'll be getting something this week from Apple telling us that there's going to be an event. And right now the predicted date is October 22nd. And in this video, I kind of want to talk about some of the new things that are becoming with the new iPads. Again, the iPad mini 2nd generation and the 5th generation of the regular sized iPad. So everyone's favorite, my favorite especially, is the iPad mini. I have mine right here, which I have some notes on that I'm reading to you guys. I got this as soon as it came out, compared to the regular sized iPad, because I have the iPad 2 as well that I got a few years ago. Comparing the mini to the 2, or just any regular sized iPad, quite honestly, there's a huge difference, and I gotta say, I love the mini experience more. It's smaller, more compact, and every time I pick up a regular sized iPad, I feel obsolete. I feel like I'm going back in time, and I don't like it. So this is my personal preference. I'm sure for a lot of young people, and maybe even old people too, or just middle-aged people, they feel this way a lot about it too, but some people like the full-sized experience. So the first prediction that I got here is that they're gonna have a Retina display, and it's not necessarily my predictions, all of it, but it's everybody's predictions. I'm just trying to sum them all up together. And the first one is mainly the Retina display. It was interesting when Apple announced the iPad mini. The only thing that they didn't put in, which I really wanted, but of course I had a feeling they wouldn't, was the Retina display. I was very disappointed by this, and it was the only feature that Apple didn't include that kind of caught me, and I was like, do I really need to go out and buy this? I have no regrets at all. Like I said, I love the mini. It was totally worth it, but one thing that let me down was no Retina display. Now, comparing the iPad mini without the Retina display to an iPad 2 without a Retina display, there's obviously a huge difference, because there are the pixels without a Retina display in a smaller version are much more bunched together, and it's actually a lot more reasonable looking than something you get on an iPad 2. So I always didn't have a horrible problem with it. However, I would have appreciated if Apple actually put the Retina display in. The Retina display makes everything look clear, and it's practically impossible to see the pixels. This has been existent in Apple devices since the iPhone 4 all the way up to the new iPhone 5S and iPhone 5C. They started it with the iPads for the iPad 3, 4, and of course the 5. The iPod Touch since the 4th generation, and it also comes with the 13-inch and 15-inch select MacBook Pro models. You can still get the basic MacBook Pro models, which is what I have here. Of course, the next thing about the iPad mini 2 is the processor. Now there are actually a lot of combinations that the iPad mini 2 can have. Now currently the iPad mini is running an A5 processor, so there are a lot of possibilities. A5X, A6, A6X, A7, A7X, or A8. Now, obviously, A8 and A7X seem really stupid. The highest processor right now on any of the Apple devices is the A7 processor, which is in the iPhone 5S. Obviously, with the iPad 5, we'll most likely get something like the A7X or the A8. I'm pretty sure it's going to be A7X. So I think Apple on the iPad mini 2 is going to go with the A6 processor. That's my final prediction. I think they're going to jump from A5 to A6, not suddenly go to A7, because, if they're going to be selling the iPad at a cheaper price, they do have to cut down on the processing a little bit. So I think they'll just jump up one and go to A6. Another thing I think Apple's going to include is Touch ID. Now this isn't, again, these aren't personally my thoughts, but there are speculating rumors and part leaks and stuff like that that are showing that the Touch ID fingerprint sensor that we have now in the iPhone 5S that was introduced last month in the new iPad Mini 2 parts, it will actually fit and work with the iPad Mini 2 perfectly. This would be a really cool feature to see Apple put in, aside from putting it in the iPhone 5S, to actually open up and put it into the, iPad Mini 2, of course, most likely following the iPad 5 as well, but even put it into, the next generation iPod Touch, whatever they wind up doing. It would be really cool to see Apple open up and not just leave it with the phones. They want to offer the Touch ID to everybody. Another thing that's been going around is that the iPad Mini 2 is actually going to feature the colors, and this goes for both that and the iPad 5, as the iPhone 5S offered. So it's going to include the same silver, space gray, which we got with the 5S, which again isn't my favorite color. Stated that in a lot of my past videos. And also the gold color. Now, get yourselves ready and prepare yourselves if you want gold, now that we've learned from the iPhone 5S launch, unless Apple decides to bump up how many gold iPad Mini 2s they're going to be offering, if in fact they do. You'll want to prepare yourselves, whether you're going to be camping out for it, you're going to place it at 3 a.m. or whatever time it winds up launching in your time zone. You'll want to plan ahead and expect very much shortages. Myself, I'm probably going to try and shoot for the gold iPad Mini if they do introduce that color. However, if they just stick with black and the slate and the silver, or space gray and silver, I'm most likely going to shoot for a silver one just to change it up. I got the black and slate one here. But gold would be a very cool color to see. There have been leaked space gray ones. I'm not 100% sure if they've leaked gold ones. However, I've seen rumors of them actually including the gold iPad Mini 2. And of course, the iPad Mini 2 is going to come iOS 7 shipped. Pretty sure that was a dead giveaway. Next, we're going to talk about the iPad 5. This is going to be the 5th generation, my god, I can't believe we're there already, of the iPad regular-sized devices. I haven't gotten my iPad since the iPad 2, the regular-sized one, so I'm a bit behind. I don't have the Retina display. I don't even have Siri. That's how old mine is. But it's crazy to think that we're already on the 5th generation of the full-sized. We've really progressed fastly. But mainly, the parts that have been leaked are showing that it's going to share the same exact design as what the iPad Mini has. The edge is a little bit more squared off, and the whole back shares the same color versus it just being silver no matter what color iPad you actually get. I feel like Apple kind of lacked out when they did the iPad 4 and the introduction of the iPad Mini. I felt like the iPad 4 should have featured the design of the iPad Mini right there, but they didn't. They kept the same old one, so I feel like this year they're finally ready to make the transition and actually go ahead and change the design. If they do this, I think it's going to look absolutely beautiful, and again, that brings to the table the offers of the gold color, the space gray color, and the silver color. So the black slash space gray and the silver aren't going to be anything usual for the regular sized iPad. It'll be something new since the back has always been a silver on the iPads. It would be very cool to see if Apple did this, and I might actually shoot for the regular sized iPad versus the Mini if they wind up doing this. That's an idea. It's a really big price difference, so it's a consideration. However, like I said, my interests are mainly the Mini. It depends how stock is, depends how the devices are presented and stuff like that. And the processor in the iPad 5 is most likely going to be A7X or A8. I'm going with A7X. That's what Apple usually does every year. They announce the phone the month before, and they'll put in a brand new processor. For example, with the iPhone 5 last year, they did A6. The iPad 4 got A6X. This year, the iPhone 5S got A7. And then at the end of October, the iPad 5 will get the A7X, and I don't think it'll go all the way to A8. I think that's going to be something we'll have to wait for next year. So my final predictions, A7X. And again, just like the iPad Mini 2, I have a feeling this one's going to have the Touch ID fingerprint sensor too, as I stated before, sharing it with the iPhone 5S, and I just think that it'll slowly bring Apple's line together. They're not going to have the same home buttons with the little square logo on them. Slowly, they're all going to transfer over to the Touch ID fingerprint sensors, and eventually transfer that over to the maybe an updated 5th generation of the iPod Touch. And they could even announce during this event, the iPod Touch, they'll update them with the Touch ID fingerprint sensors. And I think that's a really good idea for Apple, if you ask me, just going ahead and taking 2 months to update the phone first, then the tablet, and then the iPod, all with the Touch ID fingerprint sensor very quickly. We're already transferring to that. I'd like if Apple just did that and didn't wait so long to update the iPod Touch as well. If they do it all in one sitting, get both iPads, get the iPod Touches, and put it all together, we got the phone, the iPad, and the iPod Touch all has sharing Touch ID. And iOS 7 shipped. Again, did I have to say that? So that's the iPad mini 2 and the iPad 5. That's kind of like my rumor roundup of it. I have very high hopes for Apple this year. Last year, I was mainly blown away and impressed by the iPad mini. The iPad 4 really didn't do anything last year, except for a bumped processor. And it featured the lightning port on the bottom with lightning cable, of course. Nothing really big. I have high hopes for the iPad 5th generation this year, and I have pretty much high hopes for the iPad mini 2 as well. I really want to see the Retina display and the gold option and Touch ID. That would just be awesome as like a companion with my iPhone 5S. Now, 2 more things I just want to mention that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, guys, just before I get out of here. My final expectations, aside from the iPad mini 2 and iPad 5 that Apple will be discussing and announcing hopefully next week or the week after, whatever it winds up being, is OS X Mavericks, the final release on my MacBook back here, actually, not my desktop, but on that TV too. I'm running the OS X Mavericks GM that just came out about a week and a half ago, and that's actually the final version that Apple will be releasing. However, they put this out just for everyone to test it out, make sure it's running okay, and then they'll launch it. So this is the same exact version. I'm going to say OS X Mavericks is running very smoothly. I ran all the developer previews, and they were really bad at first. I had a lot of bugs with my Mac, but now they're all crushed. Everything's finally working on my Mac again, and I'm running the GM, and I gotta say I like it. So Mavericks is going to be coming out most likely a few days just after the announcement before the iPads as well. And last but not least, Apple's Mac Pro. They finally said goodbye to the gigantic aluminum tower computer, and they want to go with a much, much smaller black tube-shaped, some people are dubbing it as the garbage can Apple computer, which is just an awful name if you ask me. It makes Apple look really bad. It's this black kind of acrylic, smooth, shiny canister. I don't know what to call it, but it's kind of cool looking. And Apple said fall 2013 they're gonna release it. November, just a little bit of November is the last bit of fall that we have. So we really can't give Apple that much longer to do it. But aside from the new iPads, OS X Mavericks, it's expected that Apple's finally going to give us some more details on the Mac Pro that they haven't talked about since WWDC. If not, finally talk about a release date. I'm pretty sure by now Apple is ready to actually do something with it. So guys, that's pretty much it for this video. That's everything about the new iPad mini 2, the iPad 5 that Apple will hopefully be announcing next week. More details on. Of course, first we need to get that invitation, which will most likely be coming in this week. And I'll make a video as soon as we get the invitation with full details about it that you guys will be able to see. And you'll be able to find out when Apple's going to be doing it. And then from there, I'll do all my videos on the recap of the event when they wind up doing it. And then that'll get into all the product unboxings and reviews, whatever they wind up announcing. I'll try and decide what I'm actually gonna have to grab for myself. So that's it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please leave some comments below on your thoughts. Of course, rate, give this video a thumbs up, and click the subscribe button below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.